Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're briefly going to dive into Azure to Azure disaster recovery for virtual machines using Azure Site Recovery. As an organization, having a solid business continuity and disaster strategy is really crucial in my opinion. When planned or unplanned outages occur, you need to ensure that your data stays safe and your applications remain available and online. Azure Site Recovery helps you achieve this by replicating your workloads from the primary site to a secondary location. If an outage occurs, you can fail over to the secondary site and continue your operations. And then once the primary site is restored, you can essentially fail back to it and again continue with your daily routine. Now, as you can see here, I've got three servers, three virtual machines, all running in the Sweden Central region. And I can enable disaster recovery on these individually by basically going into the machine itself, going down to the disaster recovery option and setting up the replication piece here. But if I have 10 servers, it's a little bit difficult. I want to do that at scale. And that's where we go to a recovery services vault. And I tend to think of Recovery Services Vault as a secure storage locker for your backup and your disaster recovery data, somewhere that you know it is safe. So, to begin your disaster recovery strategy, you need to create your Recovery Services Vault. Once you do that, I've got a test one set up in here. We can go to our site recovery. And in here, you've got three options. So you've got your Azure virtual machines, you've got your VMware machines to Azure, or your Hyper-V machines to Azure. In our case, we're just going to enable replication on our Azure virtual machines. They're sitting in Azure, and we want to enable replication on those to a secondary location. If we click Enable Replication here, it'll give us the option to start the replication strategy. Before we do that, just a quick couple of lines on how I tend to talk to customers about how site recovery works. When you enable the replication for a virtual machine, the site recovery mobility service extension is installed on the VM and it registers it with your Azure Site Recovery. All VM disk writes are then sent to a cache storage account in the source region, and then the data is transferred to the target region where the recovery points are then generated. And then during failover, a recovery point restores the VM to the target region. So just really important that people understand that. In here, we've got our source. So this is essentially where our machines are running. One really important point about a recovery services vault that I should have maybe mentioned at the start, you need to create your recovery services vault in a region different from the one hosting your service virtual machines. So in my case, any region other than Sweden Central. Now, as you can see, Azure Site Recovery has set all the defaults up correctly here. My main region where my virtual machines are hosted is Sweden Central. It's in this subscription. It's in this resource group. I'm going to leave these as they are with regards to the deployment model and the availability zones and go to the next piece. The great thing about Site Recovery, it retrieves the VMs from the selected subscription and resource group, which is really easy for you to then go and select the VMs that you want to enable disaster recovery on. In my case, this is the virtual machine that I want to enable DR on. I'm going to click next, and that's going to take me to the replication settings, which is basically my secondary location and the variables that I want to fill in there. Now, as you can see here, my target location. So this is my secondary region where the virtual machines, as it says here, will be replicated. I want them replicated to West Europe if Sweden Central goes down. You can see here on the target resource group, Site Recovery creates a new resource group in the target region with an ASR suffix on it. So it's really easy for you to distinguish what that's for. We're going to leave that as it is. On the network piece, this is the failover virtual network that we want to failover to. So this is basically the virtual network in which replicated VMs are located after failover. And Site Recovery again creates a new VNet and a subnet with the -ASR suffix on it. We're going to leave that as it is as well. The storage account, this is, as it says there, is configured separately for each of the virtual machines that you enable DR on. With regards to site recovery, it will create a new storage account in the target region to basically mirror the source storage account that you've already got in place. You can go in here and configure this as you want. We're going to leave the rest of these as they are, and we're going to go to next. So in the replication policy, when you enable the VM replication, Site Recovery creates a new replication policy by default with a 24-hour retention policy attached to it. You can go in and edit this, create your own policy, and we can go in and set the retention period. So a retention period is, it basically specifies how long Site Recovery keeps your recovery points. At the moment, that's 24 hours. And then the app consistent snapshot frequency. So this is basically how often Site Recovery takes an app consistent snapshot. So you can go in and obviously put your information in there based on what it is that you have come to an agreement with regards to your disaster recovery plan. We're going to leave all of this as it is, and then we are going to go to the next and essentially enable replication on this. This does take quite a while, so you're looking at maybe 15 to 25 minutes, depending on the amount of machines that you have enabled replication on. Now, just in the interest of time, I've already created a recovery services vault and replicated virtual machines across to it. So if I look at my replicated items here, I have two virtual machines, my finance and my sales server, and you can see the failover health is healthy. The status is protected. So what we recommend is for users to go and do a test failover, just to make sure everything is set up, making sure the networking is correct, making sure that the failover works correctly in a real life scenario. We can also see on the overview page in Site Recovery, it gives you a really nice overview of how things are looking from a replication perspective. You can see here I'm getting 2 warnings. That is because my virtual machine was switched off. So it's going to notify you that the replication wasn't actually happening during that period, because obviously if the machine's off, you can't replicate. So it's give you that warning basically there. You can see the failover health and the failovers, that the test failovers that I've done has been healthy. I've also created a recovery plan in here as well. Now, you don't have to create a recovery plan. I have created a recovery plan just because I have put my VMs in a group, as you could see previously in the replicated items piece. And basically the recovery services plan, or the recovery plan is basically an orchestration workflow that automates the failover and recovery process for applications during a DR event. So I have got this basically set up in my environment here. And you can see here, it gives me the option just to run that as a test failover. I've added my 2 VMs to that recovery plan. So anytime that I run the recovery plan, those 2 VMs will run. I'm going to go in and do a test failover here, just to make sure everything is set up as I wanted. And you can see here, it's automatically in my recovery plan. I've chosen Sweden Central to West Europe in the case that Sweden Central does go down here. You can see here, it gives me the option to choose the recovery point. So it gives me the latest RPO, the latest multi-VM processed, and then the latest multi-VM app consistent. I'm going to leave it on the latest, the low RTO. And then in here, I've got the option to choose my virtual network and essentially select OK. Now, I think it's probably a good idea to go through these. So if we look at the latest process, this basically uses the most recent recovery point. The latest up here at the top uses processes all data before failover. The latest app consistent at the bottom here, which basically uses the latest app consistent recovery point. So I think it's good to read through these and distinguish the differences and what fits your use case. In my case, I've just left it at the default with the latest processed. Now we can click into this just to see how the failover is going. You can see here, it's basically looking into the progress of it, gives you a status. You can basically be kept up to date on what is actually happening with regards to that failover. At the end here, you can see finalize the recovery plan. So this takes a little bit of time, so just be patient. So just when this failover is happening in the background, if we look at the networking piece, we're going to go into our recovery services vault here. We'll go into the replicated items, and down here we're going to go into the back end of the machine and look at the network piece. So in here, you can go in and specify certain, like for example, if you wanted to specify a fixed IP address and subnet, you can go in here and essentially do that when this failover happens. This is the whole point of doing the test failover, just to make sure everything is as it should be. You can also go up here and look at your latest recovery points. So it's a nice view to be able to get a really clear idea of your recovery points within inside your applications. You can see here it gives you basically a nice little overview on everything that you maybe need to be aware of. If there's any configuration issues, if there's any agent issues with regards to that's on the virtual machine. Down here you can see all the events that has happened in the last 74 hours, or 72 hours rather. At the bottom as well, it gives you an infrastructure view. So it looks at your two regions, your Sweden Central and your West Europe, the virtual machines that you've currently got set up. Here's your cache storage account, and then the managed disk, along with your Azure Site Recovery. So you really have a nice view here on what is actually happening. The test failover is still in progress and is successfully completed. So if we click in here, you can see everything has been successful. It didn't take that long. We can see if we go into our virtual machines now, we should have two more virtual machines in West Europe. And as you can see here, they are currently running in West Europe, and it gives you the suffix of test as well. If we go back to our vault, just to show you the network piece, into our replicated items, and if we go to those servers, we look at the network piece, we can go in here and edit the network. As I said, if, for example, you want to specify a fixed IP address and subnet, you can go in here and basically do that. But these are your failover settings. So you want to make sure all of these are correct, and making sure that you've got everything set up in a way that it's really quick for you to fail over in the event of a disaster. That's site recovery in a nutshell. I think with Azure Site Recovery, you can basically ensure business continuity and minimize downtime within inside your business. And by setting up the DER properly and running regular DER drills, your organization can stay prepared for any, I suppose, disruptions that may occur. Hopefully, this is helpful. And hopefully, it gives you some benefits with regards to how your disaster recovery is set up for your business.